Welcome back. Now, most of South Africa's minerals and metals exported to the US have been excluded from President Trump's tariffs, and while PGMs have also escaped this round because it includes key metals used in the car manufacturing process, the group of metals will suffer indirectly from the tariffs imposed on the auto sector. In the meantime, the Minerals Council SA stresses that the overall impact of Trump's tariffs is likely to weigh on global economic growth, which will in turn lower demand for minerals. Hugo Pienaar, chief economist of the Minerals Council SA, joins us with greater perspective on this. Hugo, thanks so much for your time this afternoon. And let's start off with you just walking us through some of the key metals that are exempt from the tariff. We did mention PGMs as one of them, and then the ones that'll be hit by those levies, and just explain how the changes in global trade policies influence the price and demand for the metals.
Sure, good afternoon. So basically, South Africa's key mineral exports were excluded from these tariffs. You've mentioned the PGMs, but also gold has been excluded, coal has been excluded, and you would already, if you add those three groupings, PGMs, gold, and coal, you already get to a large share of South Africa's mineral export revenue. But then also chrome and manganese have been excluded. So yes, I mean, in terms of the tariffs that were announced last week, directly South Africa was not hit. But I think to your earlier point, it's very important to think about the global growth outlook after last week's announcements. So I've heard some comments to say that, look, South Africa's exports to the US is not, South Africa exports 8% of our total mineral exports to the US, so it's a relatively small share. We don't have to be that concerned. But the problem, of course, is that it's not just the US economy that's being hit here. The US may take the brunt of the hit. But certainly, South Africa's key trading partners outside of the US, if you think of Europe, for example, if you think of China in particular, Japan even, all of these countries are being hit by very high import tariffs from the US. And you're already starting to see international forecasters downgrading their forecast for global growth, real GDP growth this year. And that, I think, for us is the biggest concern. What does that mean for the demand for minerals from South Africa? And it can't be good, right? And that's the concern.
So those dynamics will, eventually then trickle down to the prices, and that then we'll start seeing the impact on growth, right?
So it is currently it is the concern about the demand for these minerals in an environment of weaker global growth that are depressing the prices. But then going forward, if indeed the demand does lower and we see weaker demand in reality, that starts to impact. So then it's a volume story as well. Currently, it is the prices that are coming down because of these concerns. Eventually, it may also be the actual volumes that come down in terms of our exports.
Talking about pricing concerns, I just want to talk about the PGMs for a minute. We saw that they were exempt from the list, but of course could be hit by that 25% auto tariff, which will likely weigh on demand for these group metals as they are used in car engines. Walk me through the impact that could possibly have on the demand story for the PGM market, considering that we've already been in a downturn cycle within that industry.
Yes, indeed. So for a while, the PGM basket price, we've seen a bit of a flicker up so far this year before last week's announcements. But for the last 18 months or so, in broad terms, that PGM basket price has been under a lot of pressure, and that has to do with the green transition And the concerns about the shift from a PGM perspective, the concerns about a shift to electric vehicles globally, especially in China, as opposed to the so-called ICE vehicles or the internal combustion engine vehicles. Now, those ICE vehicles in their exhaust systems use PGMs to limit greenhouse emissions. Electric vehicles, they do not require that. So that was the story up till now. Some of that green transition has sort of been, the timelines have been pushed back, but now the concern is that with these import tariffs into the US, the price of vehicles in the US will undoubtedly increase. And that price increase for American consumers is likely to dampen the demand for vehicles, and then through that, you may well see a lower demand for these PGMs used in the exhaust sensors. So it's sort of it's a consumer demand concern that we are seeing currently. And of course, you may see globally impacts on vehicle production because of these tariffs. It's very difficult at this stage to quantify the impact. Suffice to say, if you, again, to repeat, if you have higher vehicle prices in the US, you are most likely to see a hit to demand.
And just before I let you go, how much of a boost does the record gold price then give us in this kind of environment?
So that is, I think, a very important shield. And perhaps one can also say the combination of record high gold price and a weaker currency. You know, we've seen the rand weaken quite a bit the last week. So if you translate that into a rand per kilogram, a price for gold, you know, it is really attractive currently. So our export revenue from gold is no doubt going to be, well, if prices sustain these levels, will be even higher this year than what we saw last year. So that certainly does help the current account. The question again is the strength of these different forces, the extent to which the demand for PGMs comes down versus then on the other hand, the higher gold price. So all of that into a pot, it's quite hard to have the net, to calculate the net impact. Suffice to say that the higher gold price, again, it is an important shield against the negativity we may see on some of the other minerals.
Hugo, thanks so much for your time and just sharing those insights. That was Hugo Pienaar, Chief Economist of the Minerals Council SA.